Welcome to the Regeneration Podcast, brothers and sisters. And I'm a little stoked today because we're talking to Olivia Chaney, whom I just discovered a few weeks ago. So I'll tell you the story. And Mike, you know I like stories.
I do.
So
I like your liking of stories, and I like your stories.
Well, you know, Mike, you know, and I think people who read my Substack or my blog, they know I'm a huge fan of English folk rock. Huge.
Nobody bigger.
Since when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, it started with American folk music that my mom used to listen to. But then when I became a teenager, I think what happened, two things. Rod Stewart in his early albums, like when the song Maggie May came on the radio, which is like changed my life. Which is the first thing I did is I tried to find somebody who had a mandolin, and I found a girl who I dated for a little while, and she had a mandolin, and she taught me a couple of chords.
Did you date her for her mandolin?
No. Yes. Okay. No. Wow. Actually, I dated her because she taught me I was dating a friend, and then we were hanging out together as teenagers do, and she said, "Oh, I have a mandolin." I said, "Wow, that's cool. I always wanted one." She taught me how to play a couple of chords, and within a couple of minutes, I was playing Maggie May. So. But that goes back, and then Fairport Convention, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I posted something on social media, which was a video of, right? Not really. It was a YouTube video, so it wasn't actually film, of Sandy Denny from Fairport Convention doing. Who Knows Where the Time Goes, which is an extraordinarily beautiful song. And I hate her because she wrote it when she was about 20.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that when I was 20. And right after, so someone who was following me posted a couple of videos. Says, "You ever hear of this person?" And it was Olivia Chaney.
Oh.
And I said, "No, I hadn't heard." And it was actually.
This was how long ago, Michael?
Just 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
It was Olivia. It was your video of Solitude. I think filmed at your place in Yorkshire, right? Which is beautiful, and it blew me away. And the other video he linked was, and we'll talk about all this stuff as we go through, was the Offi video of this beautiful hymn, The Old Churchyard.
Yeah.
And both of them I listened to them 20 times, and I go to Spotify, and I'm like, where's Olivia Chaney? And I've listened to your entire catalog, at least that's available on Spotify.
Oh.
Or pretty much constantly for the last few weeks, just trying to, because you know how it is when you're a musician, and I'm a musician, and you find something that you really like, and you don't just listen to it, you study it, which is why I've been studying your work.
Oh.
And especially
now,
you
know more about it than I do at the moment, because I feel like I slightly lost that. I feel like I've lost that ability to, I think partly because I've got tiny kids, and also just something about the kind of like journey I've had as a musician has just meant that into my 30s, I was just like, I was a jobbing musician in London in my 20s as well, but like I somehow had more time, and I could afford to be poorer and just like spend time obsessively listening. And I feel like I don't make, or I don't have the time to kind of go that deep anymore. So I envy you, but not envy you going into my back catalogue. But
well, and I do this very often, because this is something I would do when I was younger.
Yeah,
I've done it very often, but I wanted to do it for this because what I thought when I discovered your music is I think you have something so beautiful and so unique, and it's very special, very special. I mean, and I really wanted to figure it out. It's like, I'm an English professor, and I always tell students, I said, the thing with me when I write books or essays or whatever, it's not because I want to write books or essays, it's because I want to figure it out. I want to figure out George Herbert or who John Donne. Actually, you quote John Donne in one of your songs on the new album.
Yeah, in a kind of cheesy way, and
But so let's back it up a little bit. And Olivia, why don't you share with with Mike and myself, but also with our audience. Your journey as a musician. I mean, it's a weird thing. I know from experience is how do you become a musician, and even more important, I think, the thing that I was always interested even more than being a really good musician was being a songwriter. So how did that journey happen for you, at least initially?
Well, very circuitous, and it's still going on because although I do finally now feel like on some level qualified, whatever that means. But I do call myself a songwriter now, but I'm still by no means prolific, which sometimes frustrates me, and I can kind of feel a bit inadequate around other people who are like writing a song a day, and and kind of have a kind of not just a work ethic, but a capacity to approach their work like you hear about poets like Auden or something, who kind of got up at the same time every day and like would work and then have a sherry or whatever and then go to the beach. Or it's just like I'm not that kind of person, and it's much more chaotic and organic, and but then it's not that I don't stick at things and have my own kind of rigor, but it's I don't think I work well with that kind of regimented approach. I guess it doesn't seem to reap the rewards I'm looking for. So anyway, so yeah, it's taken a very long time to feel like I can call myself a songwriter, and I still I'm almost working backwards with your question, because I sometimes shirk against being called or feeling like I'm being a bit pigeonholed as a folk singer. And that's not because I don't profoundly love traditional music from all over the world, not just the British Isles by any means. I've spent a lot of time listening to kind of indigenous music and from cultures everywhere really, and studying it. But it's more because I feel like I kind of made a bit of a transition into being a songwriter, and in my culture, or in the kind of worlds I know musically, if you get called a folk singer, that kind of implies that you don't write your own stuff. So that's like been it's like a funny thing in my head, and maybe I just need to get over it. But
interesting.
I mean,
that you're playing the standards, mostly that you're playing the standards, or that you go into not being a musician. I wondered.
Well, see, it depends though, because like if you're like the Laura Marling, like when that kind of scene of kids came up, like Marcus Mumford and Laura Marling and Johnny Finn and all those guys, when they came up, they were called folk. But the like really diehard real folk who played traditional music, like Eliza Carthy and like the Shirley Collins and like all, that was like a funny thing, because all the real folkies were kind of saying they're not folk. And so I don't know where, I guess I feel like I fall in between all those camps. And then also to really answer the beginning, answer your question properly and go from the beginning, is that my kind of studying and love of a lot of classical music was actually a huge bedrock of what I do. But still, actually, if you look at it more Freudianly, my really early introduction to music was the whole range, and was very deeply Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan, and actually a lot of the American 60s, folk songwriters.
And for our listeners to say, to buy Olivia's albums and to support her, for a non-musician right away, but I mean this in the best sense, because the way you would hover around certain words that carried kind of the weight of a sentence. Also, you invoke Freud in some of your lyrics, which you just brought up Freud. Thought that was great. Yeah. But there was an Emmylou Harris quality to the way you kind of dwell on certain words way up there. Oh. And of course, Joni Mitchell, there's a little bit of Judy Collins, but again, when you bring, again, genre defying, even for us. But I think, Michael, what she's saying about folk music, would that be different in the States or no?
Yeah, I think it is a little different in the States because
really.
Yeah, a little bit, because we wouldn't pigeonhole you like that.
Have the weight of the traditionalists, you know, the
Yeah.
tradies, right? And so, but
Yeah.
you also see it in, I mean, that was what's wonderful about Fairport Convention and even the Waterboys, right? Where they would draw on, and this is what I wouldn't place you necessarily here, but what I liked about all that stuff as a kid, because it wasn't only a kind of traditionalist or old school, you know, revitalization of a tradition, but actually trying to add something to it, which is what I see you doing, you know?
That, I mean, it's interesting you saying, because you saying that of you as Americans not quite recognizing this like almost divide that perhaps is more in my head than anyone else's, but like I think no, that there are these kind of different categorizations and slight issues with the categories in my culture. And actually I came up against the American like non-recognition of that when I worked with the Decemberists and did the Offer X record. So I was always going like, oh, I don't know if we can do this, and kind of seemingly being a bit precious about stuff, because I know all of the really hardcore folkies. I know, you know, I knew Norma Waterson, I know Eliza Carthy, I've worked with her, I know Martin, I know Shirley Collins. So I felt really like almost responsible and kind of a bit judged by them if I wasn't doing the right stuff with the trad material. And all, you know, all the Decemberist guys were just like kind of what you're going on about, you know. Yeah. And then I, you know, I guess I know like the generation of the Chris Thiele and the Aoife O'Donovan, all those kind of people. And I guess, yeah, I feel quite akin to them because they do a whole mix and they write their own material, they sing trad stuff, they kind of get called folkies, but they kind of sit in the singer-songwriter world as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess part of what makes it confusing maybe for people with me is there's the classical stuff as well and the Purcell. So, and I'm really hoping that possibly my next record, depending how things go, will be a kind of mainly Purcell but like Baroque reworkings thing. I really want to focus that into an album. I've got lots of ideas for that. So yeah, keep people guessing on myself.
And I think you know, you mentioned that kind of tension between innovation and tradition, right? Which I mean, Bob Dylan, right? Classic Bob Dylan went through that, right? Where he decided to bring electric guitars to the Newport Folk Festival, and people and all the old folkies are, who do you think you are? You know, but that's how, I mean, you know, it's what I love about it, and you know, professor of English literature of early modern and medieval literature is there, and this is what I, you know, what really excites me about these kind of romantic traditions is I like the idea of having a foot. Well, what I like about this kind of music is it's of the people, right? It's organic. It organically grows out of a situation, and it includes poetry and actually, you know, like the lyrics. And I think like that's what one of the songs on the Alpha X album. Which one? Willie Winston, right?
Oh, that song. You see, that's a perfect example. That was almost, there were a few songs on that record where I was really terrified of doing a version of that song. And now I'm proud is not the right word, but I'm fond of that recording. I feel like I kind of came up with that arrangement. I came up with that arrangement at like, you know, 1 a.m. in my Airbnb in Portland, Oregon, when I was already meant to have all the arrangements ready. And I was a bit like, what am I going to do with this one? And it's one of my favorite folk songs ever. And Anne Briggs's rendition is, you know, I think one of the kind of great recordings.
Yeah.
I'm a massive, I grew up on Bert Jansch. My dad used to play me all the Bert Jansch songs, and that's kind of partly why I decided to teach myself guitar after I'd graduated from music college. And so it just had a lot of weight for me to kind of come and do my own version of this like iconic song and these iconic versions of the songs. And again, Colin Malloy was just like, what's your problem? You know, he didn't have all this like English baggage kind of attached to it. But in terms of the balladry, the text, it's in some ways it feels so of its time, and then it also has this total universality about it, which all the great trad songs do, even the more surrealistic ones. Obviously that one has a very clear kind of narrative arc and a kind of almost not proto transgender, but like, you know, that extraordinary like climactic line when the king says, if I were a man, I would, you know, if I were a woman as I am a man, my bedfellow he should have been. It's just like, wow. For me, that just kind of makes me realize that we make too much of a fuss about sexuality and gender and stuff now, because like people have been you know, talking about that kind of thing for so long. It's like, anyway, yeah, incredible song. And the way we captured that was really magical. Tucker Martin kind of did like, you know, Carter family style, had us around a really old mic, what they called those lovely old ribbon mics, an RCA or something. I can't remember what they're called.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we literally just it was like me and the bass player and Colin on nylon string, and it was like one take, and we just kind of stood around the mic in a room. It was really special.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, so I'll just drop it now because we're talking about it. Now, the one thing I was thinking about when considering your work, and I mean, you've done a lot of cool things, right? In such a short period of time. I mean, you did, but that must seem when you did the Offi Rex album, which was 2017, right? Maybe you recorded in 2016. I don't know when you recorded it, but
no, I think we recorded it in 2017. I remember first going over. I think I went over to Portland in 2016 to kind of begin seeing if the project had legs. Colin suggested it after I did a support tour, and I was a bit reticent about it, but my then record label were like, you got to do it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do it unless it's got some like artistic integrity. And I kind of, you know, pissed everyone off a bit by not being quite sure. And then we went over, and I think we did record it in 2017, but yeah.
But whatever the case, and that was that the same year you did you guested on the Kronos Quartet album?
That album we did record a bit earlier.
Okay. But it came out in 2017.
It came out in 2017, yeah. It was a big year of releases and really exciting collaborations for sure. Yeah.
And then COVID hit. Right?
Well, yeah, but those two projects sped me into doing my second record, which was the Yorkshire album. So thank God I cracked on with that before. Then I left London with a kind of, you know, bit of a trail of wreckage behind me, moved in here, which was a building site.
And that second album is Shelter.
That's Shelter, yeah. And then COVID hit, that was it. So I was pregnant with my first child, and I'd fired my second manager, and I was not happy with the way anything was going for me in the music industry, and I had left London, and Thomas Bartlett, who I made my second record with, was like, we've got to make another record together. We've kind of got like unfinished business artistically. Like, you know, I love making the second record with you, but we both know that there's more that we kind of want to say on another record together. Had my tickets booked to New York, was pregnant, was going to make the record in my like third trimester and fly back just before you're legally not allowed to fly when you're pregnant anymore, all of that stuff. And I remember Trump like banning flights a week before I was meant to fly out. And I just said to an audience in London, I played a show in March, kind of saying, you know, I won't see you guys for a while. I'm actually having a baby, because I kind of wasn't showing, but I'm making a new record in New York. And then things changed with my record label. And then it feels like in a way 2 years went by really before I could get back out to America. Now back to doing everything myself. I'm self-releasing.
No, so this new album, you produced it and did everything yourself then?
Well, no, I went back out to New York, but I just had to do it like when I could get back to New York. Okay. Yeah, so it took me 2 years for, yeah, for whatever
And the
reason.
new album is called Circus of Desire, correct?
Desire. Yeah. Yeah. So that is also with Thomas Bartlett producing,
Okay.
but self-releasing, and yeah, and just feels very, very different in many respects, but partly because I kind of feel a bit free of like a lot of industry stuff. But
That's
it's
why
also harder. What was that? Sorry.
well, that's why when I left the music industry, it's and I was in, I was in the more rock and roll side of things in my 20s, and I was like, wow, this is disgusting. These people, like, because I was an idealistic kid, we're gonna make people happy and spread joy, and then I was like, it was basically the Me Too movement with boys, right? It was disgusting. Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. You would not believe it.
Right.
I don't want to. We won't talk about this because it makes me too sad. But it was, but it was a blessing too, because then I realized what's really important. And I think, maybe this is, when I was thinking about talking to you today, I was thinking, well, you know what? When I was a kid, I probably would have fallen in with a more folk oriented or acoustic oriented kind of musical community, but it didn't exist in Detroit where I grew up. At least I didn't know where it was. So I kind of
No.
fell into, so I went down a
That's the
different.
funny thing though, because I don't really feel, you see, even there, it's like I have an instinct to correct you, because I didn't really, besides my dad's record collection, which consisted of like Bert Jansch and Anne Briggs and Stanley Denny, and then all the Americans and Canadians. Many of my favorites are actually the Canadian songwriters, but I didn't grow up with folkies. I mean, if anything, I grew up more in like classical kind of music scene and doing like piano competitions and stuff like that. And then I like totally dropped out and rebelled. And then I went to a hot house. Then I went to a conservatoire and actually studied jazz at conservatoire, but like didn't really study it and just did my own thing and got more creative. And by the time I left, I was just like, I'm just desperate to like write my own music and just do my own thing. I'm sick of being told what to do.
Right.
But I love all these different styles of music, but I kind of want to find my own voice. And then that plus, like any kind of artist, you're affected by the economics of like your life. So for better or worse, it meant that I was always doing all these like bonkers different projects because I could, and I was kind of seen as versatile, I guess. And so I was always being asked to like, hey, we're going to choreograph for you and do this like bonkers, like free improv vocal thing with extended voice technique. And now we're going to do some like Palestrina in a church. And now we want you to do a folk song with a, it was just like, yeah. But then suddenly that meant that a lot of time went by and I felt like I'm still actually not really doing my own thing. It actually took me singing with like a kind of electronica, like massive pop band at the time, and like being their lead singer for a while and touring and just being like, I'm still frustrated. I still feel like I'm not writing my own songs. So that's why when you're like, oh, you've made so much great stuff, it's like, it's nice to hear that, because I feel like I came to it quite late in a funny kind of way.
Now, this might be a good time to pause and go over your discography for those of our audience who don't know. Now, tell me about this one. Pardon me?
It's not very big.
Oh, but it's cool. I get this weird question. So the earliest thing I could find that was released with you on it was in 2014, a song with Emily Hall. Is that right? Is that you?
Yeah. So she's a composer.
Right.
Yeah. And she would kind of, she's got a cool way of working, because she's quite like, I think she would take this as a compliment. She's kind of like a pop folk composer in a way. Like she's, very tonal, and she can be quite experimental, but it's like, I feel like she is driven by being accessible. She's not a kind of post-second Viennese school type composer. And I met her in a really wonderful place that, if you guys don't know, you should check out, called it's the Britten Peers Foundation, where Benjamin Britten and Peter Pears set up a festival. It's in Aldborough on the southeast coast. And I just when I graduated from college and was feeling like I need my own voice, I kind of got a funding to go on this course, and some of the musicians I met there, including her and my long time collaborator Jordan Hunt, a violinist and multi-instrumentalist and songwriter and stuff, we all met there. And in fact, she went on and like married the tutor, and so it was just like a very special week by the sea. And yeah, and she would kind of devise a piece for you, with you, kind of thing. She's very much a composer who will like work with who you are and what your voice is. But she's essentially the composer, and that's kind of me being the contemporary classical singer.
And was that the first recording that was issued with you on it?
I mean, just the other day, I was like, I don't know why, but I was looking through some old recordings and started playing my husband something, and he'd like never heard it, and he was like, "Oh, this is great. Why did you never release this?" I'm like the queen of unreleased kind of EPs and bootleg EPs. Like by the time when I signed to Nonesuch, I remember Bob Hurwitz took me out for dinner, and he was just like, "What I want to know," and he was really intimidating, and I was like 32 or 33 or something when they signed me, and he was just like, "What I want to know is why you haven't put out 7 records already." And I just remember thinking like, I've kind of got 7 EPs, I just like never really, I just used to print them physically and hand them out. Like even when I went to South by Southwest in 2010 or 11, I made a really nice EP, but that's what I mean of like, I feel like I came to it late. So yeah, officially.
Collector's items, people, collector's items. Yeah.
No, I mean, really bootleg.
But then your first, out there album, right, is which one is it? The Longest River. Is that the first one?
Yeah, that was the first kind of my proper official debut long form album with Nonesuch, and yeah.
And it's
And I felt that was special because for lots of reasons, but it did genuinely feel like a first album in the sense that the label allowed me to, and I kind of allowed myself to like put a culmination of a lot of ideas that I had been working on for a long time. It felt like a genuine representation of like probably a decade of thought before that, if you know what I mean. I mean, that sounds a bit grandiose, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean it's in keeping with what I'm saying of like, I was just this jobbing musician doing such a bonkers mix of stuff, and by the time I came to have the opportunity to make quite a big, well-funded first record, it was like, what do you put on it? And I just felt they let me be true to like that past.
Good. And then so that was 2015, and then 2017 is when you did the Offi Rex record, right?
Yeah, but we started working on stuff in like 2016.
Now, the whole thing I've been asking, because my musician friends, when you've been doing it forever, and you actually just articulated it. I mean, it's a very different thing to be doing your own project and then all of a sudden becoming a member of a band, right?
Yeah, and although I had done endless collaborations and kind of almost got a bit like tired of collaborating, and in some ways I'm not sure I'd kind of experienced like, I hadn't been in like a band dynamic for a while. And there was some funny like lead singer kind of just like, and also cultural, like the thing I was saying about the folk thing, like not clashes, but just kind of, I don't know, I guess just two people used to like doing things their own way. And,
right.
Exactly.
But I think that was the beauty of the project, really. And I'm grateful to Colin for that, because he's hard ass, and he is quite inflexible, and probably so am I, but he knows how to get shit done, and he's like, it was very like, there's just no dilly-dallying, and that kind of process yeah, I think that process did, like, again, in the spirit in which I've been describing, then made me like, right, I've got to make my second album and kind of go back to like what's my thing, and probably went a bit too purist again, and but felt like my second album was like a proper transition from the first album, but was in keeping with that. And yeah, so it kind of spurred me on, I guess.
And that's Shelter, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful record. And I just have to say this. When I was watching all your videos, and I watched the video for, I think it's for IOU, where the only one, I think it's the only video where I've seen you play an electric guitar.
Yeah, it's my
And
I
it's
saw
a
that.
Guild
Yeah, I saw it.
Starfire.
Yeah.
It's a Guild Starfire, right?
I'm afraid, guys, I've got to, you guitar nerds, I got to let you down here and tell you the truth, which is that is not the guitar that I recorded that song on.
But it's in the video.
What I recorded the song on is this one. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I kind of think this guitar is maybe, I don't know if it's cooler, but it's more
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
it's more unique. It's a 1967 original Mosrite dobro.
Oh, nice.
It's what Glenn Campbell plays, and there's only like, I think there's only about 1,000 of them in the world or something.
Wow.
It didn't cost that much. It was like $800 or something. But
Well, I could
that's
tell
why
because the sound is got what's got a resonator on it, so which is gives it that unique sound on the guitar.
Yeah.
But I had the reason I mentioned it because I had a Starfire, which I loved. It was a beautiful guitar, but I traded it for a Stratocaster because I didn't have enough money to buy another guitar, so I traded it, even trade, for a Stratocaster because I wanted something that sounded twangy, like Derek and the Dominoes.
And
of course, later that was stolen from my house. Somebody broke in my house, stole all my stuff. All my stuff. It was horrible. But life's fun. But anyway, so after so Shelter came out in 2018, right? But then I think you were going stir crazy during COVID, and you did this beautiful little EP of 6 French songs, and they're gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
What inspired you to do that?
Well, there's a little secret there, which is that they were recorded a little earlier, and being free of certain kind of industry things, I was like, right, I can put these recordings out now. And
I'm going to do something totally not commercial, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not what like my tiny audience is expecting. They're like thinking, where's her third album? And it's just like, actually, again, like kind of, yeah, just for some reason, French music was just something that was slightly growing in my repertoire, and Thomas and I wanted to pay tribute to that. He's got lots of connections to French music as well. And so yeah, it just felt like, actually, this is a really lovely collection that I can put out. And my husband helped me come up with the title, which I love because I'm a massive Stravinsky fan, and a kind of a lot of those like early modernist composers. And I love the kind of clean, pure simplicity of their title, you know, how the modernists were. So it's like 6 French songs. It's just like unfussy. It's like Le Cinq Doigts, like, and yeah, it just felt really, I mean, 6 French songs is a little bit like me just feeling like I'm combination of like reclaiming my identity and like beginning again in a way, because I haven't, no thanks to COVID, I haven't put stuff out for a long time, but thanks to becoming a mother, I've kind of been busy as well. So
now, which brings us to your new record, right? Circus of Desire, which, and I think I've listened to it 4 times since you sent me the link.
Wow, I've only sent it a few days ago.
with the lyrics, right? With the lyrics, you're watching, reading the lyrics as you're singing. And to me, I mean, I wrote even a note to myself that this record is tender as life and fragile as a bluebird's egg. And because I mean, and I'll ask you about your process in a minute, but what really struck me with this record is the kind of contending with darkness you know, but also there's light, like the song you wrote about your daughter, Calliope, which is just a beautiful jewel of a song. But the whole album, and I kept going through it, and I'm like, you know, I'm like, this is my favorite one. Nope, I think this is my favorite one now. And I have a different favorite one every time I listen to it, but they're all they're extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
But I now here now, and I couldn't help but think that, you know, because I've seen it in my own life and seen it in my children and seen it in my students, that what we went through during COVID is pretty I mean, I think a lot of us aren't willing to admit how horrible it was yet, you know. And I don't know if this is shows up in your songwriting through this period. I and I know this also coincided with the birth of your children, right?
But there was
And
also that departure from London, which I think shows up a lot. Like I would single out, not necessarily on Circle of Desire, but in all your music. I mean, your voice, you're in your register when you're singing of wistfulness. And when you said the wreckage, you know, the wreckage when you came from London. And I'm thinking the one lyrics I wrote down for myself from Arches, but I'm not as good with Michael and like when this was, you know, too much to say, words they fail us, both remain till the rude hands of time summon you away. That's a theme, you know, maybe broken friendships even or something, you know, but you're obviously a strong feeling soul, but like a sense of loss is there, you know, with your daughter coming. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, that's beauty. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, COVID, I'm trying to like answer all your different things.
yeah.
COVID, I feel like it would need to be another interview and another conversation, maybe on the dark web or something, because like my thoughts about all of what happened to us as civilians.
I'm sure you're in familiar company here, Olivia.
Not very
yeah.
not very conformist or conventional, and
no, nor are we.
I feel a lot of anger about it. So, and to such a degree actually, that, and I feel this a lot in my life as I've kind of come into my early 40s now. I'm going to be 42 in March when my record comes out, a week after after Circus of Desire comes out, and I just feel like I get so frustrated and so kind of potentially angry with like what is done to us, or like I kind of have to just say to myself, and I feel this in a way as a woman and an artist, if I can call myself that I just have to like tend to what I feel I have to offer and what I'm best at. I don't.
Good for you.
I come from a very, very fiery, very intellectual, political, non-conformist kind of culture and family. And I've spent a lot of my life like getting into heated debates, and I probably still do, and I drive my friends crazy. But I think it was so extreme and extraordinary and kind of unexpected what happened to
I'm still angry about it too.
Yeah, that I just like I kind of have to like divert my breath. I kind of can't deal with it. Like I've turned into one of those people who slightly I find myself switching the news off sometimes. I've kind of become
oh, you have to.
Yeah.
I just like I just feel like my life is on this earth is quite short. I've got the most important thing to me now is tending to my children, and then
I think artists who have a great sense of memory, because that's what I see in your music too, which describes for me a little bit of your personality, Olivia, in the way that because you could remember times, you know, it sounds like you're gifted in your music of placing yourself at a time, you know, in the past. And that's probably, you know, that's a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool. And I think the erasure of memory is part of this whole thing. We're supposed to forget. But I think bodily, you know how to remember. You remember. So it comes out in your anger during that time, because those of us who can be so easily severed from memories, we're easily manipulable, right? And I think that's, you've got to, it's a beautiful part of your music that I think comes from memory and pain. Yeah.
Well, it's nice of you to frame it so positively. I mean, I spend a lot of my life wrestling with those kind of demons and feeling like I spend too much of my time wrestling with you know, living in the past and being angry about whatever it is. But that's a really helpful thought to kind of think, actually, it can be a positive tool. And it certainly is something that I have thought about a lot, because on the flip side, you're wrestling with other people's denial and kind of capacity to be glib or to like bury things. And that's why the title of my first record is called The Longest River, because it's about the bad joke swimming in the longest river, the Nile. So it's like my whole first album is kind of meant to be about,
I read that one.
with one's own denial, wrestling with one's own capacity to repress or bury, or like, you know, and actually those song lyrics of the title track of my debut album, what was so extraordinary about that for me is that it was a song about denial, half sketched, and I had actually typed them on, I think, on my computer, and then had like forgotten about it, and then kind of, and it was about an affair and a very tempestuous, very kind of messed up period of my life. And it was like, I kind of discovered them, and I was like, wow, so you're writing about denial, but you've actually buried it, and you've kind of denied it yourself.
If you remember.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of COVID, remember, Mike, when we interviewed the Irish band I Draw Slow last year? And their last record,
you'd like them. Yeah, really good.
Their last record was very much a departure for them, because they actually did it in the middle of COVID, and they talked as well about, you know, how that influenced the songwriting and so forth and the recording. And
yeah, it gets me so angry.
And I think in your new record, Olivia, there's you always have these kinds of, I guess I would say, jazz inflected melodies for sure, because they're in, and you can see, I mean, I'm not saying you're overly influenced, but I see the same thing in Joni Mitchell, where, you know, you can't really trace out where the melody's going, right? You can but you can't see it, which is
my author friend. Oh, I just made me think. My author friend Stephen Vizenci, this great author in praise of older women, Penguin Modern Classic. In his remarkable biography, and I was like really fortunate to have a correspondence with him. He Londoner, after he had to flee Hungary, and but anyhow, when he fled Hungary and he ended up in Toronto, he lived with Joni Mitchell for several months. You have to look at his name is Stephen Vizenci, but yeah, it's just
feel really ignorant. I'm so sorry. I don't know his work. I'm going to definitely.
No. It's just he's unique. He's one of my kind of acquired tastes. He's only read, but his modern erotic novel in praise of older women is just a work of genius.
Right.
Yeah. But anyhow, it's just because there is, you know, and your voice is complimentary, but there's, insofar as you've been influenced by Joni Mitchell, you've made it your own. But it's so spectacular.
No, I mean, the thing about Joni and talking about, you know, the word influence is such a funny word, isn't it? Because sometimes I feel like what does it mean now to say you're influenced by someone? Does that mean that you are trying to sound like them, or that you know? I think for me, I've definitely never tried to sound like her. In fact, there's probably other people that I've tried to sound like more like when I felt like I needed to go more deeply into, you know, British folk music after, well, whatever, when I started teaching myself guitar after college and stuff like that, because I wanted to write songs. But in my purest way, I was like, all the songwriters that I love had a period where they were trad singers, i.e. Joni, kind of almost, not quite Leonard Cohen, but, you know, Dylan, Joni, Bert Jansch, Sunny Denny. I was like, right, there's something in trad music that they are kind of, there's something in trad music that's like a magical raw thing that I need to like get back to. So that was why I wanted to. And at that period, I became a bit obsessive with June Tabor and Anne Briggs and people like that. And I think in that period, I think I do sound more June Taborish than Joni. Like, in a way, I wish I sounded like Joni, but I never have it's never crossed my mind to try and sound like her. And I think for me, like, part of what's important for me, and it might not register with anyone except me, but that's kind of worth it in a selfish way, is that for me, Circus of Desire in this third record is that I feel like I've when I listen to it vocally, I notice that I think I've still sloughed off a bit of that. I feel like and what's amazing with working with someone like Thomas Bartlett and talking of the unconscious or denial or repression or whatever, is that it's like making a record with a psychoanalyst. Like he just forces your unconscious to flow. He forces you to not, and he knows that I'm a very kind of analytical, person in the studio and about my music. And he just uses tricks to just get things flowing. And so both in the writing and in the way I use my voice, I kind of feel like I'm finally a bit free of some of those, not ghosts, or I don't mind, but I just, when I listen, which I don't, but if I, like the other day when I did stumble across an old EP, and I was quite struck by how, to me, it sounds a little bit uptight. It does sound very English and folky and kind of beautiful and pure. And I can see why people started talking about what I was doing back then and being like, oh, there's this new English folk singer and she's kind of doing a new thing with it, but she's the next June Tabor, or whatever people said. But actually, I don't think I'd quite landed with my, like, a free, true expression of myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Part of the like I always tell young writers or musicians, this quote from Salvador Dali when he says, "I became myself by imitating Meissonier." Right? Because that's kind of what happened with me. I mean, you become, as a songwriter, musician, or poet, whatever, you become yourself by, at first, that's part of the training, is how, like, I always think it's like a little kid with a clock where they take it apart to see how it works, right? And you take it apart to see how it works, and you kind of, you take in some and you let some go, right?
Yeah.
Now, so this might be a good point to ask you if you would like to sing us a song.
I mean, I'm kind of terrified too, because I realized, like, at about 8 minutes to our interview, I was like, I haven't actually really kind of performed, other than probably a, like, kind of drunken session around the fire with mates or something, after my son's baptism. I haven't, I don't think I've, like, done a gig since I gave birth 9 months ago. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm so glad you're willing to do it. I thought you were going to say maybe you won't. No, I'm so glad you will.
Well, I mean, that's the strange thing for me, is like, back to the COVID. I've had such a weird experience of coming into motherhood much later than I should have and would have liked to in some respects, but, like, I'm so grateful and lucky that it happened in the end. But to have that happen as I'd left my life behind in London, and then COVID all at the same time, felt like a very kind of particular, unique experience. I mean, it's not to say, obviously, that, like, billions of mothers in COVID, but just there's something about that for me, that there were so many huge transitions at that time, and then kind of leaving the music industry behind in many respects during that period as well. I think my relationship to being a working musician is like, I'm figuring it out again, basically, because, as I say, my priority is my kids, and my husband has been the essential breadwinner. He's a medievalist in literature, English literature department at uni.
Yes.
But I'm very keen to get back to it now, but it's like, it's been a slow process. And then I came, so 2 years after Trump said you can't fly to America because of COVID, 2 years later, I make the record that I wanted to make with my kids, bring my husband and my kid with me, and we have an amazing time in New York for a month. I fly back, and then I'm like, right, I'm going to put this record out, I'm going to do it myself, and then I get pregnant with my second child. So then it's like, that's where the kind of delays have come. But everything comes when it's meant to, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm so grateful. So this song, I'm going to sing you the song
that's just actually just been released, like the second single, which is not about the Virginia Woolf novel, but is a
To the Lighthouse.
I don't know why I've gone into this habit, because I do it with Roman Holiday, a kind of nod to the Audrey Hepburn film, but the song Roman Holiday has nothing to do with the film, but I just quite like stealing the titles as a little cultural reference.
A Tree Grows in Brooklyn too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Although that song actually is about the story. So that's kind of, that's more literal. And do you know the story behind that? Ray Davis from the Kinks put me up to writing that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's so bizarre, but he kind of got me to write a song in the spirit of the little girl whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, and nobody better.
Yeah.
I'm glad he did.
Do me a favor, play chords first. Play chords first so we can make sure you're talking.
Can you? I mean, I could sit down, but
sometimes there's like a little thing you have to click there that makes the room, you can get the room sound in there. Go ahead, play a chord.
I'm like, my guitar playing is very quiet.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Tell me when you're ready.
Something's weird.
Do you think there's something I need to do, Michael?
No, I think it's on Olivia's side. Oops, I lost you.
Okay. It's saying audio settings.
Yes.
So what should I do? Zoom. I've never used this, because I actually normally if I do like an interview, I actually set up properly with a mic. So sorry, I kind of
no, it's okay.
Original sound, live performance audio.
Yeah.
Do you think it says recommended for multiple instruments or voices in different locations?
Here you go. Go for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
No.
No.
Let me see here.
You're just not hearing it. Level.
We're hearing it, but Michael, he's the musician, so he could describe
It's
it. I'm completely deferring.
So you have it on live performance audio or original sound for musicians?
Live performance audio. Which one do you think?
Which did you just have it on?
It's on live performance audio.
Okay, play a chord. No. Try original sound for musicians.
Weird.
It's almost like we're hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can actually see that the input is saying it's really low. Automatically adjust microphone. Zoom background noise level. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Slightly. No, it doesn't sound good.
Oh.
Well, we might have to skip it if we can't get it to fix.
Use separate audio. Built-in speakers.
I just played with my own microphone. Michael, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear fine.
Okay, cool.
It works for that. I don't know why they have this noise gate on here.
It's pretty weird. I feel like it should, but I can kind of see that the output level is not. It doesn't. It says output volume is full, but then the output level is not. Doesn't seem to be kind of showing. You just literally can't hear it at all.
No, we can hear it. It's just a little. It's noise gated a little bit.
I see. Even when I've tried those different settings. Zoom background. Oh, sorry. Can you see the settings, the Zoom settings kind of option?
Yes.
Yeah. You can, Michael, where? On over the microphone there?
Yeah, right where the microphone is.
Yeah.
Audio.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you just tell me if there's one that you know will work. But yeah, the like I feel like I should be seeing the output kind of flashing as well as the input, but I maybe not. No, because that's you guys have got output. Sorry, I'm technical.
No
dumb.
problem.
As you're fully.
Let's see. I would say just you've done auto, Olivia? As an
Yeah.
option on Zoom? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's on auto.
Yeah.
Zoom background noise removal, auto, automatically adjust microphone. My input is showing as like looks just right.
Huh.
Test speaker, built-in output, internal speakers. Output volume is at full. Yeah.
Here. Live performance audio. See that one at the top?
Top. Yeah.
Can you turn it on?
Yeah, we tried that one.
We did? Okay.
Yeah, audio profile. Should I be seeing something in the output level?
Don't know. All right. Yeah, it's just too it's squashed. I don't know why. Makes me sad.
Weird, isn't it? It's such a shame. What about if shall I just check on the video setting? Oh no, that's not gonna do anything, is it?
No.
No. Hmm. I feel like I should record something for you. I mean, yeah, because you're gonna have to like edit this, aren't you? Anyway.
I can. This will be easy too, this conversation. It wasn't too long ago, Olivia, where that would have been kind of I had to learn all this, piece by piece. But yeah, this is easy now. Actually, YouTube made it hard for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, we could do that, I suppose.
Try and
Yeah.
record something for you guys. Thing is, I wish I could say like I'll just do it in this same setting, so there's like a bit of continuity. But my husband will come back with the kids in a minute, and then it'll just be
Right.
good try.
Yeah.
I just wonder why it's just doing some kind of. What about if I unclick the automatically adjust microphone volume?
Yeah, try that.
That sounds better.
That's better.
So it was that.
Michael, you sound a little bit muted to me, though. If I sound okay to you.
How's this?
That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that sounds better.
Okay. Maybe I wonder whether live performance audio or Zoom background noise removal. Should I just leave it on live performance audio?
Yeah.
I think so. It sounded pretty decent.
Okay. I mean, it's not, it's just like computers.
Sure, sure.
Okay, we'll have a go to the Lighthouse then.
Okay. Are you going to describe it a little bit first, and then I can cut out? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Great.
this is a song. This is a song that is not strictly about the Virginia Woolf novel, which I love, and it's a nod to that because it isn't about an island, but it's about my only sibling, my beloved older sister, who also left London, maybe slightly less dramatically, but it kind of felt dramatic because she was really, really a Londoner spiritually as well, and had kind of lived there ever since she was about 20, and she's got two kids who are kind of teenagers, before COVID, actually, she and her partner took off. They actually bought a tiny island, which sounds bonkers and kind of is bonkers, with a lighthouse, and they just took their kids out of school.
Where is it? Where is the island?
It's off the west coast of Scotland.
Wow.
And yeah, they just, I didn't think that she was the kind of person who was going to suddenly start.
Crazy. That's great.
Kids, and they got some sheep, and it was literally like, you know, her and her partner and 2 kids and 4 sheep, and they just lived in this island. And but it's kind of been like, not that they needed improvement, but it's like been the making of them in a way, and just only deepened all their relationships as a family. And you know, not without its frustrations and moments of madness, but and because I've always thought of myself as the nature lover and the person who essentially like loves being in a metropolis, and was a Londoner, but actually was always craving for the countryside and a rural life at the same time. And my husband and I are still hoping that we're going to find this hovel down a track in Yorkshire, and like that's kind of that's our mission. We want to bring our kids up like as remotely as possible. And my sister didn't seemingly have that desire, and yet she just suddenly did it. So it was this kind of brilliant shot.
Fascinating, Olivia.
Yeah. Anyway, that's part of what it's about. I'll have a go playing it for you.
Oh, we better stop. It's broken up. It's not working. It's not working.
Yeah, sadly it was.
Yeah.
It's not working. So we'll have to cut that out. Oh, so
It must just be. Have you ever had people play straight onto computer speakers in Zoom before? No.
I have, and I've run into this problem, but I was able to fix it. But who knows? They may have monkeyed with the settings on Zoom.
But they didn't. They weren't using like mics. They were using inbuilt speaker on the laptop.
Yeah. That's what I was using too. Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
No.
I mean, that's why I just double checked with you before we had the meeting, because I was like, really, are you going to be okay with that? I just like.
No, that's because I've done it before and it's worked, but they may have changed the
Yeah, and it's not just a little bit off. It's just like certain words are coming in, certain notes and other notes are off. Yep.
the noise gate.
Yeah.
That I don't think you can take out for whatever reason. I'm so sorry.
No.
Let's
But
continue.
anyway.
Like, yeah, and we'll take all this. I can get it out, and we can kind of we'll
put a
begin
link
kind
in.
of a segue here. Yeah, we'll put a link in for sure. And
Okay.
and so Olivia, say like where should we, I can splice anywhere.
Wait, before we go there,
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing I really noticed, and it really jumped out at me because somebody brought it to my attention about myself years ago, and I didn't realize I was doing it. But so I've noticed your face changes when you're singing.
Yeah, I pull crazy faces. Yeah.
Oh no, it wasn't crazy faces, but you. Yeah,
I pulled
I didn't
crazy
realize
faces.
it, but I was actually when I was a Waldorf teacher. I had a guitar in the classroom, and the kids went out for recess, and I pulled out my guitar and I was just improvising at my desk, and I didn't realize, but my friend was watching me from the doorway, and I stopped and I looked up, and she said, "Michael, you don't look like the same person when you're playing the guitar." And I noticed that with you in some of the videos I've seen you, that your countenance changes. Has anybody ever brought that to your attention before?
Yeah, in good and bad ways. Yeah. And me, myself, when I've like looked at videos, sometimes I'm like slightly horrified, or people take photos at gigs.
Oh, I hope you're not. I've watched a lot of the videos. Yeah.
I think I've kind of gone through. Yeah, it depends what mood I'm in, but I go through different feelings about it. I think sometimes I'm just like, you just do whatever it takes to like get into that.
But you're in a different world. Like,
Yeah,
you're transported.
Well, yeah, I had a lovely message from a musician I know the other day, kind of talking about how she, you know, maybe ambitiously wants a performance to be, what was like some kind of like communion and a kind of like, not ceremony, but you know, it's just like, yeah, I guess like my songs and playing music at its, if I'm really, really lucky and I work really, really hard, and I actually think sometimes I also don't over labor it, and you let you know, let something else flow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's about transcending. It's meant to be a transcendental experience. But I mean, that does sound terribly grand, but that is what I'm in for. That's what I'm trying to do.
Does that affect the type of venues you most prefer to play in? No?
That's another, like, that's a kind of sticking point for me, really. That's something that I feel has always been a little bit of a like glitch in my career, because I love playing dive bars and clubs, and I love playing standing only venues, much though people would like find that a surprise. I love it. I love having to like fight for an audience, but I also need to get paid. Those
Yeah, right.
venues don't pay. Rock and roll venues don't pay you. They don't have pianos, and I love playing real pianos. I play, you know, I've got a classical background, so it's like I get put in art centers. I book myself into art centers because I get paid better. But then you like get a certain kind of audience, and you don't like get that grit, and you often don't have that. You don't often have that kind of friction and like exciting, like, yeah, just a kind of like almost like a tension sometimes, the way you have to like win people over or like challenge them. I quite like challenging audiences. It's probably always been a problem for me in my career as well, but I
like that about you.
Yeah, I don't want, I've actually never really thought about it quite like that, but I don't really want the listening experience to be complacent or necessarily even always that comfortable. And that's just like, sometimes people are like, oh, it's like so soothing and beautiful, your music, and I fall asleep to it, or you know, I'm kind of, that's great, that's lovely that I think it maybe has that quality as well, but like I feel like if you actually listen to the words, or you're actually sitting in a show and you're kind of getting what I'm channeling, it's like probably not always so comfortable or lulling you into you know.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself with this this new album touring? You know, you have young children. Do you eventually, you're going to be over in the States doing some venues and so forth, even maybe not the
America, States, without you know, the clout of Warner Brothers behind me anymore, essentially. I'm not so sure. I mean, I would, in terms of like your country and like what I felt like my relationship was with it, I would love to return to the States and play, and it was always kind of a great privilege and a really wild ride touring America, and I did it a lot for years, with varying degrees of success or not. I mean, in America, I really have played the gamut of like a dive bar to one man and a dog, and then like, you know, massive concert halls to like 3,000 people, and it's just like I feel like I've had the whole full array in America.
That's great.
And I would love to come back, and I think American audiences are really lovely and really generous, but yeah, it's the visa thing is a big issue, really. It's like you can't kind of, and I've definitely played a few illegal shows in America. In fact, I got signed by playing a totally illegal kind of show. I just like got myself out there and borrowed other guitars, and I think I like not FedEx, but I got my harmonium sent over so that I would, you know, I just did whatever it took, but I couldn't really do that now with a family. So
yeah,
someone, if any of your listeners want to like pay for me to get out there somehow, then I will.
Let's make that a thing. Yeah.
And I know that my husband and my kids, I mean, when we went to make my record in New York, we had such a wonderful month. It was so fun, and we did it on
Where did you sleep? Where did you lay down your head?
in an amazing place. I found on what is it called? I can't remember what it's called. Not
Right
Least.
in Manhattan? Were you in Queens? Were you
No, we were in Chelsea.
Chelsea?
Like,
Great.
yeah,
Yeah,
just off
I know it well.
but no, I'm trying to remember the name of the website of like where you find these incredible places.
Airbnb.
No, it's
No?
really
Oh.
not Airbnb. It's
Yeah.
it's much more kind of, it's basically like anyone who, it is like Airbnb, but it's less regulated, I
Yeah,
guess.
right. Yeah.
And so, and I saw like a tiny, very like bohemian looking, book lined tiny apartment, and I kind of thought that's going to be crazy with a 1.5-year-old, but we can probably do it, it's cheap, blah, blah. And I wrote to this woman, and she said, no, that won't be right for you, but I manage the estate of a late Jewish artist, and I actually look after his house, and it's probably not appropriate for you, but let's have a Zoom meeting and meet each other and see what your kid needs and what you guys need. And we ended up staying in the
Wow.
basement, in the garden studio of this incredible house, just full of his paintings. And
Nice.
actually more interesting to me than his paintings were his kind of folk art, like found objects, like just this.
Found, yeah.
And right now, I can't remember his name because I've got mum brain. What?
It's okay.
Well,
You
look
call
it
it
up.
mum brain? Is that the
Mom
phrase?
brain,
Okay, yeah,
Great.
that's great.
So
I remember her to be to Shalom anyway. So we slept in that, and we literally had like a shower in a kind of like almost like a plastic bucket at the end of the bed. We had like one hob, which we would make my daughter porridge on in the morning, and somehow I would think we had a kettle so we could make coffee, but we kind of lived off pizza, and we would like go to bed with like pizza crumbs in our bed.
Yeah.
But I just
Wonderful.
and this crazy art everywhere, and these like iron sculptures that were like nearly falling on us, and also it turned out after a few days of being there, or a week of being there, there was a trap door, and there was a whole cellar of like even more amazing
Wow.
stuff. I've got to send you. This is really driving me nuts. Can I actually feel like I just need to look it
The
up.
Jewish
Or,
artist's name, yeah.
yeah, it's crazy that I can't remember it. So Beta, she was, but yeah, so I used to I walked to the studio every day for like half an hour,
Oh, how nice.
and yeah, and my husband, I mean, I just owe him big time. Ben Zion,
Okay.
Zion, yeah, and you can look up his house, and you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
I mean, a lovely painter, but in a sense, and I come from a family of like collectors and curators and art historians and stuff as well. So it was just, it kind of
Yeah, I
felt
see him online, yeah. Interesting.
yeah. The
Died
house.
in 1987.
Yeah, he seemed, there was the remnants of his spirit as well. Felt nice. And the house upstairs is beautiful. You can go and look around it. But yeah, it was incredibly cheap, and
Nice.
it was very lucky and very special. And
Very
a
cool.
walk to the studio, and my daughter just absolutely loves it. And now she still talks about like, you know, little kids when they're like playing on a bike in the kitchen, and they're playing with their little kitchen, and she's like, I'm just going to New York to get some milk, Mama. And really part of her, it's part of her life. It was such
Yeah.
a significant month there. But anyway, why were we talking about that? Sorry.
That's
I love
good.
it.
No, so before we're gonna probably should start wrapping up, but I had another question, a little technical question. Now I know on the new record, what's the song? Oh, the one, I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but it's the one that you set your grandfather's poem to music.
Oh yeah.
Zero Sum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, my grandpa.
Which is beautiful. And so when I saw that, and my question was, and I have experience going both ways myself, but on this record, did the lyrics come first before the music, or how do you usually work that out?
See, this is where you get back to my kind of my chaos, because I don't have a set way of working still, and I don't think I ever will. Every song, I would say, I haven't thought about it strictly, but my instinct right now is that pretty much every song came in a different way on this record. and kind of for Shelter as well. But the title, Circus of Desire, was some lyrics, and that I had that title like years ago, and I've had it sketched and kind of parked, and knew I wanted to use it. And even actually like running up to the album, I was like still Googling, like surely someone's used that phrase by now. But
That's great. Because I would have, maybe. Yeah,
but they kind of hadn't.
Yeah.
Maybe just one book or something, but like it's not been a big title, so I was kind of chuffed that was still my intellectual property. Yeah, so bits of those lyrics came many years ago, and then Zero Sum, well, my grandfather wrote, he kind of began writing these like very metaphysical poems, but actually, you know, seemingly simple for children. When my nephew, my sister's first kid, was born, which is now 14 years ago, my grandfather was a mathematician. He was actually at Harvard for a little while, and he's Australian. But yeah, he's a kind of self-proclaimed philosopher as well, and a very extraordinary guy, and actually passed away last summer. So kind of, so I sent him the recording. He just about heard it, but yeah. And then since just this August, almost to the day, his wife of 50 years, my step grandmother, Armenian psychoanalyst, died as well. So it's, you know, what it's like when there's art like that kind of now means all the more. And the album is actually dedicated to their memory, and they were huge influences in my life.
I'm going to study that one, as Michael says, become a student, because Desire might be my biggest theological theme that I explored, my kind of theological interest too, you know.
Right.
Desire.
So Olivia Chaney, we cannot thank you enough for this interview, and I feel like I met a kindred spirit. You know, it's an honor, and your music is beautiful. And I know you do have some gigs coming up in England, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of booking something of a tour, a kind of kid-friendly, like spread out tour. I'm calling it a tour, but it's actually like come home, get some rest, go play a show.
Come home, back and cook, come up and play.
There will be T-shirts.
Yeah.
And we hope,
Olivia,
if you ever make it here, we would love to see you. And
yeah,
God willing, I might make it there to come and see you sometime.
Awesome.
But thank you.
I learned so much. Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you, Olivia.
It's been a real honor.
Thanks very much. Great to meet you.
And thanks everybody, for listening to the Regeneration podcast. We'll be linking to do you have a website, Olivia, that you want to mention for people?
Yeah, it's oliviachaney.com, and will be coming live soon. It's actually just been rebuilt, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure to link that to in the YouTube and the podcast. Right.
March, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening to the Regeneration podcast. Thanks, Olivia, and we'll see everybody next week.